Medusa just launched Bloom, which is their AI-powered tool for building e-commerce stores from a prompt. Now, if that sounds familiar, V0, Lovable, Bolt, yeah, it's generally the same idea, but what's different here? Well, Bloom is designed by Medusa, which we'll talk about here in a second, and what they do is they train this model based on e-commerce information. So it's geared towards things, as they claim, such as mega menus or anything else that is specific to the e-commerce realm. So checkouts, complex storefront flows, things like that. So we have seen that AI can generate websites. So this is not going to be, can AI generate a website? We know that it can. What we're going to talk about today is what makes Bloom different from all of those other tools. Is the idea of e-commerce trained AI prompting a gimmick, or is it actually real? Is it just hype, or is it something that we can actually rely on? So we're going to explore that here in a little bit. So we're going to figure out what makes this better than any of those other AI tools out there. So Medusa sponsored this stream, so I got to play around with this a little bit earlier, but it should be generally available now. Let's find out what makes it different. First, let's start with what Medusa is. Medusa is an e-commerce platform for developers and agents. So they're really focusing in on the AI side of development here. So it's an open source tool. It's built using code, so it's code first, right up my alley. Love code first stuff. Open source, developer focused, headless. All of that to say, this is a live test. I have messed around with the platform very loosely, but this is not a tutorial. We're going to dive in and I'm going to form opinions as I go. We can take a look at this page here. You can see that it has starters. It's very sparse in what it has for text, but you can see AI powered commerce assistant by Medusa. So we talked about that. It's endlessly customizable, which is what one of Medusa's selling points is as a headless code first shop anyway. So that is carried over into Bloom as well. And it's trained on e-commerce models or e-commerce code. So very heavily influenced by what's necessary for e-commerce, and your admin and store are all in the same place. You can start for free or have a $30 per month plan, 50 credits per month, or 10 credits per month for free. So we're not going to talk about the FAQ. We're going to dive in. So first thing I need to do is log in. So I've got 10 credits left. We're going to start, and just like anything else, we can't just send in like these example prompts here. It says ask Bloom to build a web shop that sells skincare products. That's not going to get us the shop that we want. So I want to build something real that I might actually use. And one of those things might be a store that sells digital products. So obviously I do this YouTube thing. I could sell courses, I could sell PDFs, I could sell just about anything, but I'm not going to have any kind of physical products. But I might do things like subscriptions, I might do things like PDFs, free resources, things like that. I'm going to pull up Super Whisper, and we're going to talk a prompt into this prompt box. I need a web store that allows me to sell digital products for my YouTube channel, Code with Nick. I am a modern web dev YouTube creator covering things like Next.js, Medusa.js, Payload, and more. I need the ability to handle subscriptions, PDFs, courses, and anything else a tech influencer might need. I typically use the emerald color or green color from Tailwind, so I'd like to keep up with that, as well as having the ability to include a dark mode. I think that's really about all I need. Now, I will say the first time I did this, I prompted with just the example prompts that they gave of like, just build me a store. I used build a store for computer parts. It took so long and it did not really understand what it was doing. So here I'm hoping to have a little bit more success as I have a longer prompt. And while it's doing this, let's see if this is even going to be possible to do. So if I sign in with V0, I'm going to give it the same prompt because why not? And we're going to compare side by side and see what this does. All right, so I'm going to have V0 go and do its thing as well. So here now we're seeing that it's calling tools, it's doing its to-do list, so things that you expect to see from LLMs that are building based off prompts. And so as soon as all of this generates, I don't really have set criteria that I'm going to judge this by. So there's going to be some eye test, there's going to be some just gut feeling of how things look and how things act and how things are organized and if it makes sense. And the way that we'll be able to compare both of these is we'll be thinking about Bloom, which is supposed to be giving me feedback or returning a project that is very focused on e-commerce and built for e-commerce, which I'm having it build that store. Whereas V0 is a little bit more broad. It's not something that's specific to e-commerce. So this is where we're trying to see if the advantage really is in Bloom's favor here. But yeah, so we'll see if the code is clean. We'll see if the admin dashboard works. I don't even know if Vercel's going to give me an admin dashboard. We'll see if it looks like a real storefront, and then of course how long this takes. And then after that, we'll put these things to the test. So we're going to stress test and see if we can break it, see how customizable we can get things, if there's anything commerce specific in the Bloom that is just assumed and it takes care of for me without me saying so, compared to something like V0. And other things like there's a selection mode both in V0 and in Medusa or Bloom where I can select what I want to use. We'll see what else happens. One other thing that happened, and this happens I think with any under detailed prompt, is Bloom kind of went in circles, like it was taking a screenshot and it couldn't see that text existed because it was dark text on a dark background for dark mode. So hopefully that's worked itself out. I'm hoping since I gave it color guidance, it's not going to have that same issue. All right, so it says it's live now. There we go. This is not my YouTube channel, but you know, I didn't tell it what my YouTube channel was. That's cool. So hover over products and I can see something featured and then all products. They even made images in the same color palette that I gave it, so that's really cool. You can see it has dark mode. It does not have a light in dark mode toggle as far as I can see, which is not the end of the world for me, but that's something that we can add. Let's see if V0 is done. I didn't start V0 too much longer after Bloom. That tells me Bloom worked way faster. Some of like the small details that this did, like the hover state is there, ready to level up. I like the language that it's using, and then all products. So really the things that I need to look, because this needs to be populated and that can only be populated, I assume, from the admin. So we can go to the admin panel. And of course, I don't expect this to load very snappy as an embedded website, so I'm not too worried about that. This is still loading. So far, point to Bloom on speed, but let's look at the code. We've got a backend and we've got a storefront. That's good. So yep, it's tan stack. There are some int tests and the source. Let's look at the front end. So there's images here. So that's an interesting place to put the Tailwind config in images. Then we've got our scripts, which yes is a script. This is our generating static routes. And we've got our source components. I assume that this is all shadc in. Yes, let's see if it knows if, let's go to, I don't see a component. I was trying to see if maybe it used shadcn with base UI, but it looks like it's using radix UI instead. Doesn't mean it's not using shadcn, it just means that radix is here. We've got our routes. I'm gonna have it remove countries though. So we have pages with cart, category, checkout, and home. V0 is, okay, V0 is up. All right, we'll compare these side by side here in a second. We're here to review Bloom, so we're going to take a look at Bloom first. Most of the code looks fine, so the UI I'm not going to review because this is all basic, like normal component stuff. I was just trying to find a component file, essentially. This looks pretty clean. Let's look for accessibility things as well. Not a whole lot of like semantic HTML. These divs, yes, they're organizational, but they're also breaks in each section. So these could be sections instead of divs, but it is all just for the address form itself. So we're not going to go through each of those components. We just kind of want to see what things are looking like. We've got code here. Again, looks clean. Let's look for our products, which is right here. Code looks good here as well. And let's come here to V0. So I have errors. I don't see any errors over here, but I do know that it did come up with some TypeScript errors, so we'll come back to that. We've got a sign in. It does come with a light and dark mode handler, so I do like that. It has pricing, browse products. Doesn't work. We do have all of these. I don't expect these to have pages. So this looks like every landing page we'd expect to see. Came with YouTube. Here it didn't even try with my links. It knows my, or it thinks it knows my YouTube channel, but it didn't include it there. It has all of these dead links that you would expect that it would fill in, at least even with placeholder text. I'd expect some of these to work, especially since if we go to our app products, yeah, products has stuff set up, so none of that worked though. Then pricing, courses, both made in Next.js e-commerce, so that's interesting. This made it all in Next, of course. It's got styles. I don't see an admin route. Sign in is dead as well. Try to get our admin page to load. So here I wonder if my issue is Safari, not necessarily that it's not working, or it just won't work in an embedded website. So here we are. We have our admin. I can look at my products and I see we have a couple of these. So let's go back to our store and we can look at our e-commerce masterclass. Let's go here to the variant and I can see some pricing. If I want to edit the pricing, let's say I'm a little bit greedier than this and we'll make this $249 and then this just $239, 99, $249. So it updated my pricing there. So if I click on this, I can view details, I can add to cart, cart pops up, I can go to the cart, and then I can start the checkout process. Already this kind of leaves at least V0 in the dust. I don't have any of this. This used 5.5 credits or 4.5 credits. This used less than 2, so that's not bad. But that got us pretty far here. So a lot of this is helpful stuff, obviously, for physical products as well. So things to keep like attributes, height, width, length, all of that. Not super important for me. All right, so let's ask a follow-up for V0 to see if we can get it caught up to Bloom, for example. So none of the links do anything. Is there a way to build an admin panel that will handle this for me? Something like what Medusa.js handles out of the box. And then for Bloom, I need to figure out how to adjust the mega menu. So we're going to ask it a couple things because we're light years ahead of what V0 is going to do for us. Here we're going to stress test it a little bit. First, how do I change the featured product in the products mega menu drop down? Then I don't necessarily need more regions than just the US. Is there a way to do purchase power parity in this shop? How can I create discounts for my products? Let's start with that. All right, so come back over to V0 and see what it says to me. So speed, right now, Bloom won that. Not only did it get up to speed faster by about a minute or two, so it's not like drastically faster, but it came with an admin panel. It did exactly what I wanted for the menu and for the color and for really just about anything. It's like a fully functioning store right out of the box. So promise check, that's good. V0 did not deliver. It took a couple more minutes and just didn't do anything. The storefront, it looks real. Like I would shop on this store. So outside of the links that I didn't give it links, it just did it anyway. I would, adjust what links things went to, but outside of that, this is a store. It's got a promo code, it's got checkout, it's got cart. The products have pages, everything works great. The only thing I couldn't figure out was the featured product, but that's super minor and something that could be adjusted with human judgment. Admin dashboard is super useful for Medusa, but that makes sense. That's kind of Medusa's whole thing. Did not get an admin panel with V0. I won't beat that dead horse anymore. And then the code it produced, first glance, pretty good. So I'm sure there's some stuff I could fix in there. But here, like this is general code. Like this looks fine for V0. I'm not too concerned about code quality from either of these. So back to this, we're gonna start stress testing now. So this, we're starting to go a little bit beyond what the original prompt was, and V0 is already stuck. So it's asking questions. I'm cool with questions. I'd rather it ask. All right, so we've got Bloom working on a little bit more of a complex feature, which is a dynamic setting for the featured post or a featured product anyway. V0 is working on installing Supabase. So now I'm trying to test what the customization is like. So here I don't have the point and click like I thought I did with V0, but I do have point and click here with Medusa, which we will explore in a little bit as well to get really fine-tuned with our edits, assuming we have enough credits because I'm running pretty low. The commerce-specific features, we already saw that we can't do purchase power parity, but we can do a form, fair pricing form, for example. So it is coming up with smart solutions to my problems. All right, so if we look at products, I now see that the most recent or the featured product is here. So let's see if it tells me what it does. So featured admin store settings in the sidebar. So that did not create what I needed. So that's unfortunate. So stress test, that's what we were trying to do, find where this breaks. I ran out of credits before the store could fully complete based on what I want. Unfortunate, but it did get me pretty close. Let's take a look at V0 and we're just about out of credits. Let's see if this gives me the same grace period that I got from Bloom. Okay, so I did not get any grace from V0. So as soon as I run out of that $5 is gone. For Bloom, I did get some bonus time, so that was nice. I was not expecting it. I also would not recommend that you expect it, but for me, it was enough to get at least a second prompt all the way through. When I say all the way through though, the store settings did not show up properly. So it still adds US to the, for compatibility, but always defaults to US. So that means I don't have a country selector anymore. I only have the US as a listed supported country with currency, but I have a fair pricing form here for people to submit. And then the discounts, we just checked it. We have a couple where you can get 20% off your entire order, can have fair pricing and launch promos as well. And then product prices we can change. But yeah, so V0 didn't do the stuff, ran out of credits, and then it stopped. So Bloom got me a very decent looking shop. I'm happy with what this looks like. I would change the images and then publish it, but really pleased with how this came out. Would need to fix a few of the links here. The products, I would want to build that out, but the shopping cart experience is great. I would need to figure out how to link my payment provider, but I figure that's not going to be too difficult. A couple of the downsides is that I wasn't able to finish the admin panel where I would get fair pricing and store settings, so that's unfortunate. But we saw it in action against Vercel. We saw it against V0, so you now know how it compares against what a AI generated website would look like compared to like a fully featured, mostly fully featured store through Bloom with minimal prompting. I gave it some details and it came up with a pretty good website here. So final verdict. Bloom works. It does exactly what Medusa says it does. It works quickly. It worked more quickly than the rest of our products here. So it worked faster than V0. I didn't try Bolt or Lovable, but I assume that they're going to be about the same. So out of this test, Bloom wins. So it is a good platform, does exactly what it says it's going to do, and it does it very specifically for e-commerce. So it's not something more broad and generic like V0 would be, but it's actually very specific to what you need for e-commerce and for e-commerce to be successful. So all of that in favor of Bloom there. So AI e-commerce, these kinds of tools in general, the more vibe codey tools, for lack of a better word, it's interesting because it makes sense that they exist. Non-technical users want to have access to products that allow them to either prototype very quickly or at least to get like something up and running super fast. So great use for Bloom by Medusa. I think that makes sense, especially for anybody who wants to be not tied to things like Shopify or WooCommerce. I get it. I think it should exist. Good platform. Highly recommend. I do think it's going to be a good addition to the AI race right now. For those who are developers, who are more on the professional side of development, probably something that you might get inspiration from or ideas for, but you might have an easier time setting up Medusa yourself or trying to get a starter that already exists and working from that. So all of those are good things. Not every app is built for every person, so that makes sense. Honestly, I enjoyed this. I liked working with Bloom. It was nice to be able to build out an e-commerce store. Things I would have done differently, sure, but I could have prompted better. If I had more credits, I would have prompted better. So maybe I could have managed my credits a little bit better. All of these things up for debate. Happy to talk that out. But I do think that Bloom was a good experience overall. I am excited to work with it a little bit more, as I actually do need to build out a store for digital products like courses and PDFs and other things like that. I recommend that you try it out as well. If you have not tried it out already, you can let me know what you build in the comments. That's it for this video. I do hope that you found this video helpful in assessing the differences between Bloom and other products. This is just one man's opinion though, so be sure to go out and check it out for yourself at bloom.chat. I'll have a link to that in the description, but don't forget you can subscribe to my newsletter, Next in Dev. You can find a link to that also in the description, as well as my website, nlvcodes.com, where you can subscribe to my newsletter. You can find my Discord server, or you can become a member via Patreon or YouTube membership. Either way, your support means so much to me, and I look forward to connecting with you all in different platforms. That's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one.